Hello, everyone. I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Wow, it's been a little while. Now, the reason for that, of course, as you will probably hear as we go through this live stream, and even starting a little bit right now, is as you can tell, my voice is not exactly up to par these days. My apologies for that. I live in Missouri. Our weather is temperamental at the best of times, and very oddly, this time of year, we've been going up and down with the temperatures. And sorry, guys, my sinuses don't seem to like that very much. So I've been saving my voice this week, but I think today's topic really warrants some conversation because I think Steven Crowder, he didn't just drop a bombshell yesterday. I think he gave us all some information that is going to have us reflecting on who we really consider to be allies and who we consider just to be people who've put on a veneer and essentially taking advantage of, perhaps our trust and it certainly take advantage of our time and our resources to give us the illusion of someone who's pushing back against the nasty machines that run our society and all these hideous institutions that are interested in everything except about what's best for you and me. I think it's more important than ever for us to understand who our friends are and honestly who our friends aren't. And if that means that we pull back the masks on some people who and some companies that perhaps we thought were, better than what they actually are, the sooner we know that, the better. We've got to know. We've simply got to know who's actually on our side and who's working towards the same goals that we are. And I'm not really looking forward to this idea of, maybe we have even bigger problems in media than what we thought. But I would rather know it than be surprised and disillusioned further on down the line. I think it's important that we know where we stand. So, in case you missed Steven Crowder's video of yesterday, he was showcasing a somewhat redacted contract that is apparently fairly standard issue from all the companies he's been fielding offers from, because upon his departure from the Blaze, of course, he's a prominent YouTuber. He has a huge following. So, of course, there's going to be other companies who are just kind of sniffing around the edges and throwing some offers at him. But the issue with these offers is that it isn't kind of the normal constrictions that you might expect if you were entering into a business relationship with someone. A lot of these contracts are essentially outright ownership, not just of your work for the length of your contract, but essentially of your whole persona and your social media and how much they want to curate, how much they want to control, how much they want to be the decision makers for how you are presented of the world. I mean, this is one thing that really is, I think, special to content creators, entertainers, musicians, people of that nature. It's because what you are projecting out into the world, your image, I mean, that is so personal to you, even to people who essentially kind of work themselves almost into a caricature of themselves. That is still your own creation. So for this big corporation to want to swoop in and essentially own you, that hits a little bit differently than someone who's hiring you for an engineering job and saying, hey, I need you to construct bridges, or I need you to figure out something with engines or something of that nature. And whatever you produce while you work for the company, becomes property of the company. That is a difficult thing for some people, and some people don't even want to go far and do that. But when it is the company saying, so we essentially own you and how you're communicating with the world, that is a much bigger deal to my mind. Now, I was watching TimcastIRL because he and his crew and some of his guests were talking about this, and they had shared a little bit of the insider baseball about the ins and outs about why these contracts come into being and why they are like they are, and why this just seems to be what the big corporations seem to expect you to be willing to give up. And one thing that actually Ian Crossland brought up, and, dear Ian, he's either completely on the mark or completely off of it. There's never any in between. But he was spot on about this. He said that these seemed like contracts that belonged back in the 90s when you didn't have the beast of social media as it is, where people did not essentially build themselves up out of nothing from the very dirt to become this major media presence. That just wasn't a thing because the technology wasn't there for it. I mean, not really. I mean, this kind of independent reporting, independent anything. I mean, that just wasn't a thing back then. But it is now. But the corporations have not adapted to the times. And one thing that Tim Pool brought up, he said that essentially the job that the corporations would be able to do for the content creator, they should really be coming to them as potential employees, with the creator essentially being the employer, because their whole thing is, well, you shouldn't have to be messing around with marketing and with all these legal issues and this and that. We'll just take care of all that for you. But in reality, if you look at the contracts, it's more about penalizing the content creator. What if they had an accident or they're ill, and we're going to dock this much of your remuneration and this and that, and if you don't produce exactly how much we want you to produce, or if you try to fight us on how we want to manage your social media accounts, there's going to be financial penalties for that. And also this, if you run afoul of big tech rules, if you get canceled, if you get a strike, if you are banned for a period of time, they're going to be taking it out on the finances of the content creator. So really, what benefits are these corporations offering to the Steven Crowders of this world, or even to small, no money operations like the one I'm running? What exactly are they offering? Because they're not offering protection. They're not offering any kind of legal shielding. They're not really doing that much for, as far as marketing goes, because if someone is attracting the attention of these corporations, that means they've already done the work and created a presence on their own from the ground up on merit. What's the corporation going to bring to you? That maybe a few more eyeballs, maybe. And even then, if they want to start controlling your messaging, as apparently according to these contracts, they are wanting that influence. They have clauses about if you happen to offend one of their sponsors, how there's going to be penalties for you. They are wanting to essentially direct you to have this illusion of independence, this illusion to the audience of, yeah, I'm still the same person you've always known and loved, but in reality, you're only getting a partial bit of that. Oh, sorry. Okay, carrying on. And that's why I think Crowder brought this to the attention. He wanted us to see behind the curtain and see that, these conservative tech platforms, they are not what they're cracked up to be. And the principles that they're talking about on the shows aren't really it's not commiserate with how business is being conducted, because it isn't about independence. It isn't about people coming together in these voluntary associations. It's do what we tell you to do, accommodate big tech. If big tech doesn't come and get you, we will financially penalizing you for running afoul of big tech. So really, you're still operating under the same rules. Only now, there's a limit to how much big tech can do to you. But if you are in a contractual relationship with, say, The Blaze or The Daily Wire or Epic Times or any of these other bigger names in conservative media, well, they can take it out on you because that inconveniences them. You being willing to take a risk and say something edgy in the public square or bring up topics of conversation that big tech doesn't want you to talk about, yeah, they're going to take that out on you because they don't want you taking that risk. They just want to make money. Okay, fine. I'm a capitalist. Let's make money. But let's also keep money in its proper place. Let's understand that the fights within our civilization right now, these are life-altering fights. This isn't just the normal business as usual, shall we have a 12% tax rate or shall we have a 15? That's not where we're at. We are are we even going to be anything that even remotely resembles the United States? Is our culture too far gone? What has happened to us? Are we going the way of the Roman Empire? And what does that mean? We have deep problems to talk about. And we need to be talking about that on a serious level, not a superficial one. And that's something that I have been noticing with a lot of the hosts on The Blaze and The Daily Wire and similar platforms, is that even if they are talking about major issues of the day, it's these tiny little segments. It's not the deep dives. It's not even what, my friend and colleague Georgia Liberty and I, and with Puritan View do on our live streams where we're trying to get into the deeper aspects of the issue, talking about consequences, talking about possible remedies. They're not doing that. Now, I'm sorry, if you're making all kinds of money and you have this network that can get you all these kind of eyeballs, Where would be the better place for that conversation? Why are you leaving it to 3 middle-aged housewives in middle America? Why are you doing that? Why is conservative media allowed to fail us to where those of us who are independent, who, don't have the financial backing, who don't have the technical expertise, and sure as hell don't have the marketing expertise, why is it left to us to actually do all of that grunt work? And why would we want to aspire to be like these big networks? Because I don't think that they're doing nearly as good a job as what they want their audience to believe them to be. I think for the fact that they're asking you to pay for memberships and everything else, I think the audience should be getting a lot more in return. And honestly, I think that their creators who have signed on with them deserve some better treatment. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, if you didn't see Georgia Liberty's video, let's see, it was last week, I think. She posed the question of what is your ideal society? What would that even look like? And that got me to reflecting, as she frequently does. It is, do we want a society in which it's all these institutions ruling the roost and doing everything? Because I don't. I want a society where if you create it, you keep it. You're in charge of how it's sold or if it's sold. You get to determine what your image and persona that you want to project into the rest of the world, what kind of reputation you want to cultivate for yourself, how you want to do your work. That should be yours. We should own ourselves. We should have ownership of our work. And if we are in collaboration with people, let's have it collaboration. Let's not make slaves of each other. And I want to say hello to Marcus, who left me this comment of right versus left as an illusion is the people versus the overlords. Yes, it is. And it's really disappointing to find out that some of these big conservative institutions, and I'm not even talking about the political side of it. I'm talking about the media side of it, Marcus. They are part of the overlords. They want the same old thing. They want to dish up the same thing, and they want to just make their money and let people feel like they have allies, and that's there someone is taking up the mantle and leading the fight and all of these other things. But in reality, just an illusion. In fact, I think it's a more damaging illusion than what we have in politics with the division between the Republican and Democratic parties. I think there is truth in the saying that politics is downstream from culture, and what's going on in business is also downstream of culture, but I do think it's before politics. And it's also this reflection of where we're at. There are people who think that it's perfectly fine to treat people as commodities, disposable, and to penalize them if they aren't doing exactly what you want them to do. How does this make big conservative platforms anything other than participants of the cancer culture that all of the rest of us have been criticizing for so long? And have you noticed also that a lot of these platforms, they're starting to really hyper emphasize a lot of religious things? They want their Judeo-Christian world, and they are completely either willfully ignorant or they're being dishonest about what exactly that Judeo-Christian world, what soil that foundation was built on. Because I'm telling you right now, the best things about the Western world, the best things we have to offer, the best things about our society, those came from pagan societies. They came from pagan values, pagan virtues, the pagan way of doing things. Who wants to talk about that? Georgia and I will talk about that. Amanda, who is a Puritan Christian, will talk to Georgia and I about that sort of thing. Where's the rest of them? Why is that getting ignored? I don't think it should be. And I think that, pardon me again, I think Crowder, with what he's going through, I think he is seeing things, as they really are behind the curtain. I think he's doing a public service, making us aware of it. And I think his willingness to say, do you want to come and create something with me? Do we want to try something? I think that is a noble work. I was watching his video yesterday, and I felt the most compassion for him I've ever felt in my life. It was like looking at a wounded soldier, someone who'd gone out there and fought and battled, and they did their very best, and they got hurt. And now it's time to bandage up their wounds and help them heal and become partners with them in that healing and start moving forward again so they can get out there and do the fighting. Because Crowder has gained a following for a reason. People like what he says. We should be helping that. And I think of all of the talking heads out there, okay, because I'm not going to cough yet, but it's coming. But I do think of all the talking heads out there, I think Crowder would be the most likely to change his mind about seeing how, this Judeo-Christian world has very deep pagan roots, and the pagan conservatives have something to offer at the table. It's worth hearing what we have to say. There's a great deal of a justification for having a democratic republic that you can find straight from ancient pagan cultures of the past. We are a part of this conversation, and I think, Mr. Change My Mind of anyone would probably be the most receptive to that kind of argument. And, I know that feelers have been put out on the Crowder team, and I hope something comes of that. And if not, I think it's best to start battering down their doors and just say, not only do we exist, we want the same kind of society. We want to have the freedoms. We want people's liberties to be preserved. And we do not want all of these institutions lording it over us, no matter what kind of institution it is. And that's the chief objection I've really had against the Daily Wire, for a very long time, is they want to be institution builders. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's the kind of thinking that got our society into trouble to begin with. We need more collaboration, fewer institutions. That's why I'm always on the lookout for someone to possibly do um, sit down discussions with, either, privately on the Gilded group or, here during live streams, talking about a variety of different things, getting different views on the universe, reaching out to other pagan content creators who also want to, kind of share in this cross promotion kind of deal. And I'm not talking about just mentioning people on live streams. I mean, that's easy. You can do that and be one and done, and that's over with. But I'm talking about people who are, they see you put up something and, they watch and they leave you a comment. They leave you a like. They spread your link on their social media, making it people aware, hey, there's other pagan content creators out there. They're saying worthwhile things. Being the kind of person who isn't just saying, I have something to say and I think it's worth people hearing, but someone who's also willing to say, there's other people out here and they also have things worth hearing. And I want to bring that to the forefront. And I got a comment from Mr. Nick saying, I think he was specifically talking about the Daily Wire. That's my suspicion as well. That is my suspicion as well, especially when Crowder was talking about the almost hyperventilating clauses about reading ads in that particular contract. I mean, Daily Wire is absolutely notorious for the amount of ads that they have. And if it was just kind of a normal business partnership of, these are the people who, because we do their advertisements, we're able to keep up the lights on, we're able to pay the employees, that's all well and good. But it still seems that the advertisers have too much power. People need freedom of speech. And if that means more people are going independent and we just have kind of, cross collaborations across channels here and there, maybe that's just what we need to do. Maybe what we are needing more than anything else is just to have a lot of smaller channels, a lot of smaller people standing up and saying that and saying, oh, I know so and I talked to this and such, and we came to have a roundtable discussion, and through that we are having similar conversations to what other people are having behind closed doors, and maybe that emboldens other people to join in on the public conversation rather than having one great big banner for us all to rally behind. Maybe we need to be giving the establishment essentially the equivalent of the death of 1,000 cuts. That they don't have just one competitor or a couple competitors that they have to worry about. No, they have to worry about each and every one of us chipping away at the veneer, saying, we have thoughts, we're reading the news, and we think the way that things are being talked at us is really insulting and condescending to everyone's intelligence. Now, we all know we have plenty of our countrymen who aren't that bright, but even for those who are the most intellectually limited, the way that a lot of these pundits speak to people, it's absolutely disgraceful. It's insulting even to them, even to people of the most limited capacity. It is insulting to them because they aren't playing it straight, because they aren't wanting people to understand, and because they aren't actually leading or doing anything useful. I think in the end, Steven Crowder and his instincts, I think he's a community builder. I'm a community builder. Georgia Liberty is a community builder. Amanda, aka Puritan View, is a community builder. We are needing people to come together for actual conversation, and I think ultimately that is the pathway that I hope Stephen Crowder is on. And Marcus, yes, a bunch of small groups all networking together. Yeah, I think that's the way forward. Let's put as many cracks into the foundation of these big bad things as we possibly can. There's nothing so big that it cannot fail. There's nothing so large that it is impervious to any outside damage. We look at the fall of empires throughout the ages. They all had weaknesses. So do all the major companies. So does any major social movement. Anything that is gigantic is vulnerable. And that's why things like what's going on with the WEF and all of the other organizations throughout the world that essentially want to make you and me peasants who just do whatever we're told. There's a reason why I am not as concerned about them as other people are. It's because I look at them and I think it takes so much to go right for you to get your way and be able to implement things. It takes so much that has to go smoothly for them to maintain the illusion of their power. There's a lot of different ways to mess with that. And there's even ways to mess with that through perfectly legal channels. So we are not helpless. And I like what you said, Marcus, about the bigger they are, the harder they fall. 1,000%. And maybe it's time for these platforms like the Daily Wire, the Blaze, Epoch Times, ONN, Newsmax, whatever it is. Maybe it's time for them to learn a little lesson humility. Maybe it's time for them to be reminded about why they got an audience to start with. It had to do with people who are disenfranchised, who are disaffected, who felt completely ostracized throughout society, because that's the only reason why they have gotten subscriptions, why they have any kind of following. It's because there were people on there who were originally saying things that we are saying inside our own minds, that we are saying to our neighbors, only they were getting to say it to a bigger audience, and that served a great purpose. Now, if they no longer serve that purpose, then maybe we don't keep supporting them. That's how I'm thinking about it. That's where I'm at with it. So, in the description box, I have not only a link to Stephen Crowder's video, but I also have a link to essentially a petition where he's counting noses. It's essentially people entering in their email address. I haven't gotten any emails from him, so I don't think he's going to be an onslaught or anything like that. But essentially, he's wanting to know if people want him to carry on with this fight, to move forward, and try to figure out a different way of doing businesses. So if you are thinking along similar lines, please go and support him. It doesn't cost any money to sign that particular petition. It's just, enter your email address and you're done. But just let him know that you're there. Because he was told that to the people who think that we do that didn't exist, let's prove everyone wrong. Let's show him we exist. Let's tell him there's a reason for you to get back in the fight. Because he is compelling, he is compassionate, and he has a lot of people willing to watch what he does. So let's use him as the tip of our spear. Let's at least try. Also, in the links below, I have a link for let's see, it was Sticks, Hex, and Hammers video that he did that essentially confirms what Stephen Crowder said, and he kind of goes into why he has steered away from other offers of sponsorship. I also have the TimcastIRL link to a segment in which they talked about this last night. Real good conversation there. I also have a link to the quartering, his reaction to what Crowder was talking about. He went through the contract, and I didn't have anything to improve on what he said. So if you're interested in the exact terms, definitely check out the quartering. Then I have a link to Georgia Liberty because, of all pagans that I work with, she's the one who really hits politics the hardest. So definitely go and give her some love, give her some encouragement. Let her know that you want her to continue on doing what she does. And then below that, I have also the link to the Gilded group. So if you want to carry on with this conversation where I can type and where my voice isn't giving out every 5 minutes, that would be fantastic. We have the power. We are the ones with the power and the agency. And I think it's time to remind all these institutions that without our cooperation, they are powerless and weak. So if you would like to join me in those happy thoughts, please come see me on Gilded. But I think I'm going to go get some juice to soothe my poor throat. I'm going to get off here. Hope to see you guys in the Gilded group. Also, if you have time this evening, We are doing a group chat on Gilded. We are focusing on everyone sharing and retelling their favorite myths. I'm calling it, the digital campfire. We are reviving the oral tradition, and this is our latest effort in doing that. So if you have a great story from mythology that you want to share and kind of put your spin on, absolutely join us tonight. We're going to be meeting up at 6:30 p.m. Central Time in the Banquet Hall channel on Gilded. So absolutely join us there. We'd love to have you. But that's it for me. Time to rest the voice. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining me.